I'm also here to introduce Mark Keating, who is the keynote speaker this morning. Mark is a great member of the Perl community. He fell into the Perl community by accident, actually, as many of us have, on a role-playing website with Matt Trout. And it's just been downhill from there. No, Mark is great. That's right, Mark? Yeah, good. Okay. Mark loves music, and he loves photography and cheese and Doctor Who. So, you should definitely talk to him about things like that. Yeah, those are the important things to know about Mark. The most important thing to know about Mark is that he's also the most famous non-Perl programmer in the Perl community. So, without any further ado, here's Mark Keating.
So, rather portentous place for us to start. Beat 4/19 before the first quarter, let's face it. In the beginning, there was the analytical engine order code. This was from the first children, Babbage and Lovelace, and the days were many, and much was barren in the wilderness following it. But eventually, there arose the CPC coding system, of which little is written. In fact, little is known. But these were the first days, and much was barren still, and filled with little valves that went pop. But CPC did begat Bohm, named after a man called Bohm. And it did begat the Lanning and Zerler system, once again named after Lanning and Zerler and Adams, who was obviously cruelly overlooked in the system. And it did begat sequential former Übersetzung, which I really wish had been called Bauer and Samuelson because it took me ages to remember that. It was slightly easier to pronounce than the next one, which was IT, named after a very scary Stephen King book. And it did begat Fortran, who did shout his name into the world through the medium of John W. Bacchus. And Fortran did begat Algol 58. And now, truly, have we entered the world of names that make no sense whatsoever. Which is done properly, let's face it. They should be acronyms, abbreviations, contractions that will mean nothing whatsoever except the removal of a single letter to avoid a copyright contract. Algol did begat Algol 60, suspiciously familiar except for a number, and the start of what would become a depressing naming trend. And Algol 60 did begat CPL. CPL has two definitions to its name. If you can get both of them, you win no prize. Much waning and wandering was done in the name of CPL, but it did begat Algol 68. And by now, you should be aware what year we've entered. Algol 68 did begat BCPL, the Before C programming language. Yet another computer language that had its acronym added afterwards. And BCPL did begat B, because A was something horses ate. And then came forth the true word, and it was spoken by the first of the great prophets, Dennis Ritchie. And he spaketh thusly, "Let there be C." And all did fall about in wonder. They declared this to be the chosen form from which all would surely fall. But Dennis did not stop there, for he gave us units, so that C might be housed in a form of wonder and a place of enlightenment, the open doorway from which knowledge would surely fall. But there were heretics, Zedos, whose door was shut, and Windows, which is not open. In units did the chosen exist, and when they came unto a place where much text would fall, and unto that they did present. and said had a sibling of Orc and Shell, and all about the land was plenty. But the harvest bore too many fruits, and the children of units could not hold the multitude comfortably. Many did gnash their teeth and flail about in despair, as they want to do on a Saturday night after a few beers, declaring the harvest lost, for it took too much effort to keep pulling back to sea, so winter was truly coming. And thus the new prophet spake, and he said with great manuplexity and whip-uptitude, if you have a problem that would ordinarily use Sed or Orc or Shell, but it exceeds their capabilities and must run a little faster, and you don't want to write the silly thing in C, then Perl may be for you. And thus did we go backwards and recreate the universe in it. And here endeth the first lesson. Welcome to the Perl of Christmas Past and to the conference. Hello, everybody. Applause, please. Make my shirt light up. So, we know a good many of the people who are in this room are here for the first time. You're the obviously sober ones, or the ones who can handle a hangover. So younger than all those old farties who think they're real Perl gods and who all didn't get up this morning. But this talk's mostly aimed at you guys anyway. Let's forget them. So my name's Mark Keating, as Casey told you, and I love this quote, by the way. I was called the Perlmeister. Me, the Perlmeister. I love it. I am the master of Perl. I am the Perlmeister, the twisted Perlmeister. Yeah. Obviously somebody who doesn't know very much about the Perl community wrote that. I'm the managing director of Shadowcat Systems. That's a software consultancy based in Lancaster. And I'm also the chair of the marketing committee. We keep it pretty quiet. We don't like to tell everybody. I'm the director and secretary of the EPO. I've organised the London Perl workshop for the last 6 years remotely. I organised the QA hackathon this year. I also organised things such as the Google Summer of Code, Dynamic Languages Conferences, the Google Coding, QA hackathons previous years, Northwest England Perlmongers, Send a Newbie Initiative, which I've run for 4 years. I've got 2 small children and a very understanding wife, and I will have my revenge in this world or the next. When I first asked to do a keynote at YAPC NA, I went, squee! Thankfully it was an IRC and nobody would ever know about it. Then my brain sort of went, oh crap, what have you done? What are you going to talk about? And then Todd gave the next line, which is, we're going to make you follow the theme, and since you wrote the Perl of Christmas Past already, it should be really easy for you. And I thought, oh, that's a great weight off my mind. Nothing to do there then. So I get the Perl of Christmas Past. I am the past, and Stephen will be doing the Perl of Christmas Present, which is calling the Detroit of scripting languages. I'm sure he's going to use much more interesting pictures than that one. And Matt Trout would be doing his State of the Velociraptor, but slightly differently. He's going to be doing the Velociraptor Christmas Future. Now, I like Dickens. I studied Dickens. I really like Little Dorrit. If you know your Dickens, it's a very interesting story. But I also like adaptations. And I really like this particular film. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could all dress up like the characters in that film? I mean, I'd have to get a taxi onto stage. And, you know, obviously that stereotype would work because I'm British. And Stephen would actually have to be on wires, kicking people in the face, and wearing a tutu, which is a normal Saturday night for him, so that's nothing unusual. And then Matt would have to wear a big cowl and a hood and say nothing, and that's where it really falls down. Matt Trout saying nothing. Okay, he's a big scary horror, but saying nothing? We don't actually have enough time, drugs, or beer to have Matt Trout saying nothing. You'd have to be seriously sedated. But it would have been nice. I mean, I wanted him to do it as creative dance. Because that would have worked. Now, I apologize if you can't keep up with the way I say things. I did bring an accent into the country. I didn't let the TSA know, but I did bring it in. I also snuck in a couple of words that you guys normally would use differently. I didn't verbalize them properly. I'm really sorry about that. If you can't keep up, I suggest you watch the YouTube video and slow me down to about 70%. And when you come to Matt, slow it down to about 20%. 25 years ago, 18th of December 1987, whilst working at Unisys, using the statement I read out a little bit ago, Perl 1 was released. Now, that was also the same day that Final Fantasy came out.
Coincidence?
No, it's just also the same day that Final Fantasy came out. Yeah, thanks for being there, you know, heckle from the second row. On the 5th of June 1988, very quickly here, Perl 2 was released. Wow, those were the days, eh? Numbers came quick and fast. That was the first National Cancer Survivors Day. So, again, no freaking coincidence whatsoever. Perl 2 is interesting in that at the same time, Randall Schwartz, looking a bit younger here, started the Just Another Perl Hacker meme. And I think that's the first meme you get in the Perl community. Even before memes became a thing, it was the first meme. It was a series of increasingly complex elements that he added to his email signature. Now, you have to think that back in those days, this didn't exist. This didn't exist until August of 1988, when Jackro released it. So everything back then was done via teletype, I think, or maybe they wrote messages and passed it to a dinosaur, and the dinosaur took it to the next person, something like that. On IRC, Perl quickly became alive. We were pound Perl on FNet to start off with. In the UK, that pound is a hash. So hash pipe is funny to us, and you guys just don't get it. You're like, pound pipe, are those Brits being ironic? I think IRC is perhaps where most of the older generation, and when I say that I mean people older than me, I'm so very young, first encounter Perl. And it's where they first started to form community. And I'm going to segue into community there, because it seems like a good place to do it. Now, you've already met Yakov, and he is our community advocate. But he put me on the community advocacy committee, so I think I can wander on this topic for a few minutes. From the very early days, Perl has been strongly linked to its community. A lot of this has to do with Larry. It's a lot to do with the thinking he had, the way that he went about things, the way that he approached things in the early days and at the start. And he also had people around him who also believed in a big thing, and that's grassroots. There's not an imposed order from the top. Rather, they take the order from the community itself and people doing things. So the order comes from within. And that strong move to grassroots community development is shown again in that first meme. You get people who their first identification of being in Perl was, can I use this meme? Can I use that? Can I be another Perl hacker? It's how you identify that you have Perl skills. So we're back in the days of news groups, or dinosaurs, where Comp Lang Perl was our news group. And I think I'm right, I'm not completely sure where the last post of that was. It goes up to about 2005, so it was alive for quite a long time. On Comp Like Perl, we had people such as Randall Schwartz, Tom Christensen, Len Wiseman, Steve Simmons, Marion Hankinson, along with Larry, and they met, they talked about Perl. And many of the early decisions were all made on the news group. And it would be 10 years of Perl being in existence. Perl 5 was already out before we had the very first Perl conference, where they met. And they went, whoa, bids! Out of that came this. The New York Perlmunder group decided they would set up this. And the state of New York went, no. What the heck is that? What does that mean? You can't register that crap. So thankfully they called it that, not the Perl Maniacs. Which might have been more accurate, but this one at least is mostly okay, except if you go to Portugal, where it actually does mean Perl Maniacs. Now, the Perlmonger group, first one in New York, second one was in Boston. Within the first year, there was 100 Perlmonger groups. Right now, there's 260 plus Perlmonger groups. And I'm going to thank a couple of people, Jay Hanna, Gabor. The past couple of years, they've done a lot of work. I mean, Jay Hanna's done a lot of work, full stop, on Perlmonger groups, but keeping this data relevant. It's very hard, and I don't have to do the research because they did it for me. Perlmonger groups are a great place to go to because of events. They have meetings, which means you can meet fellow people. You can meet people like you who talk about weird stuff that you talk about. And you can have hackathons, which are always fun to organize, really. They're a lot of stress, but they end up being a lot of fun. All the organising is up front. Just find some mug to do it for you. And you can have training sessions, and they can be really, really good. And you can have workshops, and you can have YAPCs if you want to enter that particular brand of insanity. All of these are run, again, local community, from the ground up, grassroots. Over the years, we've got a certain level of organisational help towards it, but it's still people like yourselves who actually start these things off and get them running. So we're going to return now to Perl 3. We're in the 18th of October, 1989, a release a year. Those were stunning days. For the very first time, Perl was under the new license, which some people call the GNU license because it's a new type of yak. That's a joke that's funny to me. None of you are going to get it. And there was democracy in Hungary. The National Assembly voted to restore multi-party democracy. This is actually a symbolic link Perl has with Eastern Europe. I'm going to prove this to you. Same year, first ever Perl training was given by Tom Christensen at the Baltimore Usenet group. And in 1990, Larry invented Perl poetry. Now, I've studied poetry, and I have a degree in literature, but I don't get Perl poetry. It's not a comment on the poetry, it might just be a comment on how dim I am. I'm going for the dimness because, you know, clearly Perl does poetry. 21st of March, 1991, Perl 4 is released. And continuing your Eastern European link, it was the first time a Polish president visited the United States. Lech Wałęsa visited the United States because the Russians no longer could stop him. Also at the same time, we started our association with this, not obfuscated code done in a pattern, but a camel. This was all because of a book, and that book was the Programming Perl book, written by Larry and Randall, and dubbed the Pink Camel book at the time, starting our long association with the camel because O'Reilly put a camel on the top. And let's segue for a second into the written word. So, 21st of March, 1991, Perl 4 is released by Larry and by Randall, who, I don't think Randall's here, is he? That's a shame. All my talk is all about him and Larry. It's like a love affair done over the years. Oh well. But the first written Perl has got to be Man Perl, back with the documentation for the Unix systems back in 1987-88, where we had Man Perl was released with Perl 1. The first printed or published is the Perl reference guide. This is 1988. Johan Roman created the Perl reference card based on Perl 2, patch level 18. I think that's the first published instance you'll get of Perl. Then, of course, Programming Perl, which year in 1996, 2000, 2012. Another good book is Learning Perl, and there's a lot of reprints of this, so it's 97, 2001, 2005, 2008, 2011. And then a young man decided that he needed his face on the cover of a book. Looking so attractive, and I bet he was so glad that the publisher said, "We want to put you on the front cover of the book." And he went, "Yeah, me smiling, that's going to help my life." There were versions of that in 2004 and 2010, and then a complete rewrite was done of that in 2012 by Curtis, who I think is here. I think I saw you say that he was here. Is he here this morning, or is he hungover? Where are you? Hey, Curtis. Buy this book. 2005, we have Higher Order Perl, which I am comfortably led to believe that you really should know your Perl before even dipping into this book. MJD is a little intense, insane. We also have Another Insanity, which is Damien Conway, but his book is pretty good. 2011, another interesting point for Perl and Perl publishing has got to be Modern Perl. Chromatic released this for free as the DRM-free version, but you can give him some money for it, or you could buy a Dead Tree copy to put in your shelves. We did. And he's also released updates to it. And I'm really hoping that model's working for him, because I think it's a great way forward. We shouldn't actually have a barrier to entry. This is what the grassroots of Perl is all about. This is why our conferences are so damn cheap. It's because we don't have a barrier to entry. And that's a good thing. We should applaud that. Now, again, building on the work of others, somebody did a lot of work for this already. Dave Cross compiled an almost comprehensive list of all the Perl books last year. I found a couple of others that I don't think he'd found. But But if you actually add up the numbers of the ones I can find on this, doesn't include things of like reprints of the Perl journal or editions where there's been no changes. These are only editions where there are changes. There have been 119 books, 81 original, 38 reprints. The reprints usually being significantly different to the one they were before. And break that down into years. We have this wonderful period between 1998 and 2004, which is very productive. 2001, 2002, hugely so. Looking like that, if you look at the originals versus the reprints. So there was an aberrant year in 2000 where there's a lot of reprints and very few originals, and then you get two big spikes and then a trail off. Don't read too much into numbers, though. It's really hard to write a book for the first time. And if there are already 100 books out on a subject, how do you find a new subject? Curtis's decision to rewrite Beginning Perl was very, very brave, considering there was already a version of it. So I don't read too much into this, especially since if you actually go looking around, well, there's a wealth of Perl material out there. First of all, the projects themselves, many of them have lots of docs associated to them. Some of them are up to date. And then there are FAQs, wikis, advent calendars, guides. We've run quite a few advent calendars. There's the websites, there's Learn Perl, there's the Perl FAQs, there's Perl Doc. And then there's the Perl Journal, Perl Review, German publication of Foo magazine. And then there's Perl News, Perl Weekly, blogs.perl.org, the Ironman competition, which is an aggregated blog site. And then let's go for some community locations. First of all, Slashdot, because I made the front page last year. That's got to be weird, hasn't it? The non-programming person in Perl made the front page of Slashdot. It's part of my Perlmaster t-shirt. That's why I'm now a diva. I can't help it. So, but we also have some presence on Facebook. There's the Perl developers, Meta, CPAN, and the Perl Foundation. And then we look into LinkedIn, where we have the Perl Foundation again, Perl Mongers, and quite 13,000 people in the Perl group. So 8 more people, we get 13,000 members, which is quite a few people. I'm not sure how many of them check that regularly, but they're still there, and I do spam them. I mean, I do engage with them. And then there's Twitter, that's where all the hot kids left some time ago. They went elsewhere. It's only sad old farters on there now, I'm sorry. It's not cool anymore. And of course, irc.perl.org, which is our own IRC server. We're also on Freenode. And then there's that long-standing gateway, which is the Perl Monks. So all that supplementary knowledge added to the fact that I told you got your Perlmonger groups as well, means that there's a ton of material that's not actually contained in any books. There's a lot of it referenced and relevant and up to date. So go looking, and meanwhile, back in 1992, Mac Perl was released. And I missed this interface. Why did they get rid of that? But I liked that. I used to use it all the time, but no, they got rid of it. I never did that with it, because I'm not, obviously not that geeky. I didn't even know you could, but you can, if you, downgrade your Apple a long, long way. 2nd December 1993, the Perl Pack Rats came into existence as a mailing list, and there has been never a point of bike shedding on that list at all. It's a place where it's just pure knowledge. They never at all. 18th of October 1994, Perl 5 is released. It's a complete rewrite of the whole system. Never again would they attempt anything so silly. Also, it's tie day in Croatia. 20 years old next year, we have to wear ties. And if you're not wearing ties, you're not cool. In the same year, strangely enough, Perl 5 porters had a mailing list because, porting to Perl 5 porters, they needed a mailing list, started by this chap over here. We also have this interesting thing called CPAN. Now, there were CPAN-alike things around the same sort of time, but CPAN came into existence in 1995. And its little history is, it was first announced to the Pack Rats mailing list on the 18th of April. That was from Andreas. Then there was a private showing of CPAN of the repo on the 1st of August. Tim Bunce, who attractively posing here in Italy, posted the first module that references CPAN as its repository, and that was the 25th of September. And finally, it's launched to the community by Jackrow on the 26th of October. In the same year, Perl Journal started with 400 subscribers, though their first publication is not to the next year, which is 1996. And 1996, Perl did something fantastic. Perl saved the Human Genome Project. We had a problem in the Genome Project, and it was this. There were a lot of text files, and they were formatted differently. The data in them had to be checked for its veracity, and it also had to be checked for omissions and replications. And so they threw quite a lot of money at finding a way to solve that, and failed a bit. And they were running into no budget left. So they had a bit of a conflap, which is one of the words I snuck in under the radar. And during that conflap, they decided that they had no money, they were screwed. That's not one of the words I snuck in under the radar, you already had it. I picked it up while I was here. And they decided that Perl was the answer, because Perl doesn't cost anything. So Perl saved the Human Genome Project, and all of the things that come from the Human Genome Project are because of Perl. In that year as well, we have the Perl Institute. That was the 4th of November, very first Perl organization, with a really easy to understand, helping people help people to help people to help people to help people to help them. Come on, guys, please. That's not alliteration, that's confusion. 1997, the first Perl conference, and yes, bids! And our modern community comes from these people meeting together, and this particular group being formed in that same year. 1998, CPAN testers come into existence. Now, I'm going to break. This year, we hosted the Perl QA in Lancaster, and we hung Pingu, which generations of school children in the UK are going to be having nightmares about that. You can ask me about that later. We actually made a noose. We properly hung him. But these 4 people were in my office chatting about Perl, and I had a little geeky moment in that these are 4 very well-known. If you don't know who they are, that's Ricky.
Wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, Ricky's not changed since then. He was so affected by being in my office. Dave Godin, Andreas, and Barbie at the end. And I had quite a few other people, and it was a great event. Well, I thought it was a great event. The food was good.
Yeah.
But having those guys in my office really worked for me. So, 1998, Graham Barr and Chris Nando conceived the system that is CPAN testers. It exists to this day, maintained by Dave Godin and Barbie, and if your company wants to keep CPAN testers alive, you need to donate £25 a month to keeping it alive. If 10 companies do that, we get the servers get paid for. If 100 companies do that, we get 10 times the servers. If 1,000 companies do that, I'll do the next keynote next year from Taiwan, from my hotel room overlooking the bay, where I'll tell you that we're spending your money properly and Barbie's not just passed out from drinking too much. 1999, the Perl conference evolved into OSCON, and we held the first ever YAPC NA. So this is the 15th YAPC NA. There are 2 people in the room who have been to every single one. One of them is doing the lightning talk, so you've already met him, and the other is Abigail, who's all shy and won't come forward. But those 2 gentlemen have been to every single YAPC NA. So if you want to beat their record, you can't, but you can kill them now. And in 15 years' time, you will beat them. The first YAPC NA was held at the Carnegie Mellon University. At the same time, we dissolved the Perl Institute. This was by a unanimous vote. It was also the first White Camel Award. This recognises the work of Perl people and what they do in the community. Now, the White Camel evolved this year and took an interesting new step. Brian decided to use this site, which is by JT and his crew, and I recommend you use this site, to find out what the community actually thought and who they wanted as their White Camel awardees. And I think that's a great thing. And you often find that. These are people who do a lot with Perl year after year, and sometimes they feel that they don't really know where the pulse of the community is, so they do this kind of effort and go back into it. And it's a great thing. 2000, grand year, quite a fun number of events. So first ever YAPC Europe, start of the Perl Monks, start of the Advent calendars, the release of 5.6, that was March the 22nd, the year 2000, and I'm sure you all know that's World Water Day, because it's important to all of you. And it was also the announcement after a coffee cup or 2 might have been thrown at a wall, apparently only 1 was broken, but several were thrown, of this, where for some strange reason they decided to do it all over again. Larry announced on the July the 19th, fourth day of OSCON, which the Perl conference is still held inside OSCON, that there would be a new Perl. And it would be done differently this time. We'd have a specification, and there would be RFCs, and it would be out by Christmas. Now, the classicist amongst you will know that's also the night that Rome burned. I'm comfortably assured that Larry doesn't play the fiddle. 2000, Perl enters the Oxford English Dictionary. It went on a cruise, started a haiku competition. You know, Perl has been a bit eccentric for some time, but it's on meds. In the same year, Kevin Lenzo created Yet Another Society to help continue the tradition that would become YAPC year in, year out, and to help support them. The following year, Yet Another Society became known as the Perl Foundation. And Yet Another Society still exists as our legal entity, but the Perl Foundation is what you all know. Perl monks and Perl mongers both joined the organization that year, and long may it reign. In the same year, we got this attractive young man. Well, he was certainly more younger and more attractive back then, to come and work for us on Perl Sits and write a book. 2002, July the 18th, Perl 5.8 is released, and many people are still there. Update, people, it's been that long. It's also Nelson Mandela's birthday, and we celebrate Nelson Mandela's birthday on that day. I'm sure you all remember that well. I was there for the party. 2002, Perl Review was launched along with NMS. That was actually created to directly combat Matt's script archive. Now, there's a bit of fair play to Matt here. He actually recognized this and posted on his website that his scripts weren't as good as the stuff on NMS. And that's all I'm going to speak about here, because there's some people still in rehab. 2003, French Perl mongers gave us ACT. And that's a little graph telling you all the number of conferences they do. Written entirely for their conference, but the conference toolkit's still used to this day, and I think they want more people to come and help them evolve it. I'm not sure what they're going to evolve it into, but certainly I think another conference toolkit might be an interesting idea. 2004, Sebastian Riedel decided to rewrite Maypole, and thank God he did. Back in the early days, Matt and I used to work on Maypole. The number of swear words that went over that. Not from me, of course, I'm lovely. But Catalyst was formed, so it's 10 years old next year. Perl 5 is 20 years old next year. And we all have to wear ties. Reinforcement of an idea encourages the idea. Wear ties. It's not subliminal. You can hear me. 2005, DBIX class. Started from the mind of Matt Trout as an academic project. And he never intended it to go much more than that until somebody said, I'm using this in production. And he went, what? I was there. He used that actual sound. It's a trademark Matt Trout sound. And DBIX classes loved, sometimes hated, but quite popular. The next year, this came into existence. Stephen gave us Moose. Now, Moose doesn't use this anymore, which is brilliant. I love that. I put that on a beer mat. I have some of Stephen's paintings on my iPad as well. He probably doesn't know that, but I haven't been into his house late at night taking photographs. 2007, Food Magazine was launched by Rennie Backer. In the same year, we also get Strawberry Perl. I love Strawberry Perl. I really do. For a community-maintained project, Perl 5 is released, and usually on the same days, but always within a couple of days, Strawberry Perl comes out for Windows with the very latest release. So if they're in the room and you Strawberry guys are in the room, you rock. So are there any of them in the room? Give them a round of applause. You rock. December the 18th, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Perl, we get 5.10. Perl has been around now for 2 decades, and it's 2007. Gosh, I'm getting too old. 2008 saw the launch of the Enlightened Perl organization. Set to support Perl projects, mostly in Europe, but also to work alongside the Perl Foundation, and to try to tout Perl 5 as an enterprise-grade language. The focus is on Perl 5, not on Perl 6 or Perl itself, which is the focus of the Perl Foundation. We also saw Modulicious, another Sebastian Rydell project, giving you a web framework in a box and a dinosaur that vomits rainbows. I can't wait till Sebastian rewrites another framework just to see what he's going to do next. There's some weird things in my head that he shouldn't do, but... we also had Distiller and the Test Anything protocol. 2009, we get Dancer. Very much loved. And of course, used by CrowdTilt. It's got a strong following, and one or two people who may be committed to that project also hate CGI.pm. I'm not looking anything at Sierra at all. I didn't mention him. Nobody heard that. We're not live, are we? Good. That's one of the ones you have to slow down. That's a joke for later. Same year, we get PSGI. First project I'm going to mention from Miyagawa, based on WSGI. The second one comes right after it, and that's Plaque. Again, based on a project from another language, and then ported to Perl, where he said he did it properly. His words, not mine. I wouldn't know. Miyagawa has a habit of this. He has a habit of looking what's working in another language, or looking what works, and saying, right, I can do that in Perl, and that would be fun. Well, insane, which could be fun. But it proves the point that all good programmers are polyglot programmers. All good programmers look at other languages and tools. There are some people that think that's a bad thing. They go, no, you're just stealing when you take it and make it in your language. Really? Because variations on a theme doesn't exist? Not a single composer in the entire universe has ever took a variation on a theme. Surely. In the same year, we get Send a Newbie. It was not originally started by the Enlightened Perl organization. We took over the organization of that when the person who started it went, please do this. It's a lot of work. Leon's a great guy, and he's going to be very, very upset that I put his face on this, and it's been streamed. This is Leon Timmermans. Everybody remember Leon. He's lovely. Let's all applaud Leon. I'd say, Leon, whoa! Somewhere in Europe, a young man is curling into a ball. The Iron Man blogging challenge was held the same year. It's now a site aggregator. It was done to try and get more people blogging about Perl. Blogs.perl.org was formed in the same year to do the same thing. Quite a noble aim. And July the 12th, 2010, the release of Perl 5.12. And this is the start of a yearly release cycle, created by Jesse Vincent, who I don't think, when he did his Perl 5 Pumpkin, basically he managed it. And he's good at that. So he gave us a deprecation cycle. He gave us a yearly release cycle. It's a tradition that's actually hard to set up and even harder to continue, but thankfully he ran off and gave it to Ricky to do that. But we should really thank Jesse, because it was a great thing that he did. And it's also Yuri's night, where we celebrate Yuri Gagarin and the first man into space. And there is a meme here of Perl in space. You'll find out in a moment. 2010 is also Meta CPAN, and the year that we got that, and Rakudo. So, yay! Celebrating the first decade of Perl 6. Perl in space. I'm just going to briefly pause for a drink. It's not vodka. It's white whiskey. Speaking of space, NASA sounding rocket 36.265, the Rapid Acquisition Imaging Spectrograph Experiment, used Perl daemons talking over an onboard LAN to synchronize and control all major instrument functions during the 5.5-minute active phase of suborbital flight. So using strict and using warnings, mission B level critical code. But, you know, that's nothing for Perl, because Rando told us in the Floss Weekly interview, number 119 with the Mars rover drivers, that a giant Perl script validates every rover command uplink to verify that they don't attempt any known bad behavior, and any new bad behavior is added to the actual script. Again, mission critical code, but on a different planet. So, if you don't think that's cool that Perl's been into space and landed on another planet, I mean, come on. It's only a few million miles away. What have you done this morning? May the 14th, 2011, which is, of course, 5.14 in your bizarre numbering system, Ricky releases Perl 5.14. And he's starting to mess with our heads, I'm telling you this. And we had a bit more space because, of course, that's also the anniversary of Skylab, America's first ever space platform. 2011, Gabo would start the Perl Weekly. His newsletter and website is a selection of the news in the Perlverse given to you in an easily digestible form, which many of us need because we're all busy. We also saw Keating released by Miyagawa and the launch of Perl News. May the 20th, 2012, Perl 5.1 sits. Now we know that Ricky is messing with us because he missed it by 4 days, and I'm sure it's on purpose. There's something else that means it, but I never asked him. I should have. But we all know, of course, this is, Metrology Day, where we celebrate the International Convention of Scientific Measurements. Well, everybody except the US and the UK knows that. Because we have this mixture of gallons and miles and pints and yards and inches and meters and liters in a manner only best described as messing with our kids. We don't even have the same pints and gallons because that would just be too damn easy. So the rest of the world goes. 2012, we get Yakov Sloman to come and be head and chair of the advocacy committee. We have our first advocacy summit, and one of Yakov's first things he did was put me on the committee because he thought I'm not damn busy enough. I'm going to reward him with a favour at some point about that. I haven't yet thought up anything cruel enough. I mean, nice enough. To be honest, Yakov's probably the sweetest guy in this room, and I don't want anybody else chairing this committee at this time. He's a great person, especially for anybody who's new to Perl. Find him out. He really does believe you over the VIPs. He's here for you. May the 18th, 2013, we're on to 5.18, and also released on 5.18. Ricky's back, we're messing with us. I'm telling you, next year it's going to be out by 3 days or something, and there'll be some kind of weird pattern, and they'll just go, ha-ha, it was this all along. He also had this great quote. It's an error to divide people into the living and the dead. There are the people who are the dead alive and the people who are the alive alive. It allows me to segue into a meme. Really hard to do justice to 25 years of Perl without talking about the fact that this meme exists. Some people think it's the reason that maybe that and other things is why we need a new number. I'm guessing that it still irks them quite a lot. I'm over it. I don't care. I don't care for the argument at all, but we did talk about it a long time. The actual argument, Perl is dead, starts years and years ago. At first we did this binary opposition thing, where we did Perl is alive. I did really want, I mean, you all know Flash Gordon, so I did have the option at one point to get Brian Blessed to do Perl is alive in a Flash Gordon way, and I almost went for it, but I thought, no, it's just, no. Well, it would be cheesy. I should have done it, just to play it at conferences. But there we go. The most important thing we should take from this is that friction is caused by demons. Now, that may seem like the bizarrest link in the world, but it's a psychological problem. If somebody believes something, you can't make them change their mind. If somebody says to you friction is caused by demons, and you say, no, it's not, it's caused by two objects going together, and they say, well, the two objects coming together is caused by demons. And you say, well, no, it's actually the collision of the two, you get friction is caused by the actual sliding against because they've got, no, that's caused by demons. And the more you try to persuade it to them, the more they will just use this phrase, it's caused by demons. There's a very famous quote where an American lady was at a meeting and somebody was talking about the world and how the world goes around the sun. And she said, no, it's on the back of a giant turtle. And so the person to humor her went, well, what's the turtle stood on? And she went, you won't get me there, it's on another turtle. And she said, what is that turtle on? He goes, no, you will not get me there, it's turtles all the way down. If somebody is convinced of something, no matter how wrong it is, you won't change their mind. So stop. The message that's been going around for a couple of years, and I've heard a lot, I kind of like the people who've been saying it. Robert Blackwell said it about hardware hacking. It's been said a lot by John. He said it in his keynote this year, it's time to show and tell. We should stop saying, we should start doing. We've been doing it for 25 years, for God's sake. We should build cool stuff. Perl's got a lot of cool stuff. We don't talk about it enough. We don't promote it out there enough. Let's just stop listening to what they're saying and just focus on our cool stuff. Focus on building cool stuff. Giving people an answer. Promoting that answer. Not saying, this is Perl and the answer. Saying, this is the answer. This will solve your problem. This will scratch that itch. Because in the end, in the long run, I can tell you, people want things that do things. They don't care what language it's written in. When somebody makes a decision to do with money, is it cheap? Can we do it? Can I get it tomorrow? Excellent. But it's written in this old language. I don't care. Is it cheap? Can we do it? Will we be done tomorrow? So stop saying and just start doing. And thank you for your indulgence. So I cut a song out of this. I'm not going to do it because we're live on the internet. Get me drunk enough in the bar later and I'll do it for you.